Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are quickly approaching 22, so also notice that we're starting to lose a few people. So let's get going. I really want to thank everyone who has made an effort to be here, and welcome, all parents, members of our community, and all guests, just for logging on this evening for this first webinar. We are excited that this virtual opportunity and this information session, focusing tonight primarily on pastoral structures at our school, is the first initiative of its type. As parents will know, this is not a platform we've used in this guise before, and we're hugely excited by what potentially we could learn by using this platform. We're hopeful that it will prove helpful and a helpful addition to our communication structures. We recognize that parents receive a lot of information and have numerous engagements with the school, and that time is always in short supply. With this platform, potentially we have ways to continue to grow our connection with our invested community while at the same time being conscious of your time and other demands. We are learning as we go, and we hope that from a practical point of view, we'll operate as smoothly as possible. But in our first endeavor, we really hope and appreciate your understanding. In the future, we believe that this could be a great platform, not just as another mode of communication to parents, but also an opportunity to share thoughts, to discuss issues, perhaps how we propose to tackle things such as vaping, drug testing, our general disciplinary concerns. We recognize that our parents and our community are our best allies and our support. And so providing this opportunity to share information is really a win-win. In the future, I'd be delighted if we could use this platform to chat to and engage with experts on social media, bring in friends from colleagues' school to discuss educational concerns, and potentially as well chat to members of our old boys and parent communities. But getting back to this evening, I'm very pleased to say that much of what you will hear, I believe, will not necessarily be new to many of you. The pastoral system in place, the house and tutor system, it's not new, but there are some new personalities leading this space, and it's wonderful to have them with us to chat about the program and to unpack it a bit more with you as our community. We're delighted to welcome Mr. Ryan de Rook, who's our senior housemaster and housemaster of Kudu House, as well as Mrs. Nikita Gizleni, our full-time educational psychologist who's joined our team, as well as hearing some details from Mrs. Standish White, a head of house and part of our leadership development team, who will be speaking around the general expectations of our tutors. All of this evening's talk will be recorded and is available on other platforms, but we really sincerely appreciate everyone who's taken the time to join us, either live this evening or at a later stage. With that, a huge welcome to all of you, and I'd like to invite Mr. de Rook to chat about the general pastoral program at Jeppe High School for Boys.
Thank you, Mr. Murison, and good evening to everyone who's joined us. It is a huge privilege to be able to introduce myself on this platform. I'm lucky enough to have met a number of parents and engaged with many of the students already, but Jeppe is a very exciting place, and I really like that it is taking pastoral care particularly so seriously. So what I'm going to do tonight is introduce the housemasters. My assumption is that I really hope that all of you really know who your housemasters are, but then briefly discuss what an understanding of pastoral care is and what it can be for your boys. So I'd like to just quickly start by introducing the housemasters. They aren't with us, or they're not speaking tonight, but they are hopefully people that you have come into contact with. If you haven't, then I hope that you will meet them properly soon. So the head of daycare is Mr. Drickus Venter, the head of Ierland, Mrs. Jessica Standish White, the head of Impala, Mr. Brett Riskowitz, the head of Kudu is myself, Ryan de Rook, the head of Oroby is Mr. David Williams, the head of Roan is Mr. Dan van der Merwe, the head of Sable is Mr. Brian Hillock, and the head of Sesabe is Mr. Prince Mhlanga. Now, these people are excellent, experienced educators who have the best interest of your boys at heart, your sons. They are mentors, role models, and advocates for the boys in their care, and they will ensure that these boys feel heard, understood, and supported. And while that is, I think, a nice summary of pastoral support and pastoral care, what I want to look at is, I think it's quite a scary thing for everyone, is the young man who goes through his high school years and adolescence. He's a young man that is caught in a storm, who faces many challenges and pressures. There's the academic pressures, which I'm sure we've all had to deal with our boys at some stage. Sometimes that's because they're expecting too much of themselves, and other times it's because it's not enough. There's their social development, the friends they make and lose. Identity development is a massive one. I don't think, for those of you that have already had a child move through high school, you'll know that the child you drop off on the first day of grade 8 is not the same child you receive back at the end of matric. Hopefully, it's because they are mature, well developed, emotionally stable young people. But no matter which way you cut it, the changes that person goes through their high school career is incredible. They have to manage peer pressure, their body image and self-esteem, relationships and dating, which is a whole beast on its own. Family dynamics is a big one. I would like to think, and I've got 2 children of my own, that I'm not to blame for a lot of their challenges, but unfortunately, my wife would tell you otherwise. There's time management and organization, which they need to realize, I think, coming into high school, and as each year progresses, so the workload increases, the demands from sport and the cultural activities increases, and to try and manage all of that becomes a very challenging task. Substance use and abuse, often there's experimentation. I think it links to peer pressure as well. Technology and social media, I think everyone can deal with that. Even though we're on this platform, I imagine as soon as I say social media, I could feel a collective sigh occur. Future planning and career anxiety, I think, for young people that we don't trust to drive responsibly, have to make decisions on what subjects to take at the end of grade 9, at the end of grade 11, whether they're going to university, and what they want to do as a career. They have to make these massive decisions, and I think that's a lot to put on there. So with all this going on, learning differences, their mental health, it's easy, I think, to feel isolated and alone trying to face a storm. So to continue with this metaphor, for me, pastoral care is the lighthouse. It's there to allow them to navigate these storms. It's a beacon which gives that sort of should surround them and provides support, strength, guidance, that even when things are at their worst, they have an option of stability and assurance. So what that means, if I can look at the role of the housemaster particularly, I think at some stage, if it hasn't happened already, the housemaster will develop a relationship with your son or sons. And it will be a personal relationship. The housemaster has a vested interest in their success, but the housemaster is a central point where information can sort of funnel towards them. So from the tutor and the tutor group, there's wellness forms, which Ms. Standish-White will speak to later. But it's not just from the tutor, it's from the school, the teachers, the academics, the coaches, the cultural activities. All that information should sort of make its way towards the housemaster. And the housemaster, in time, should be able to create quite a thorough picture of your son. But this isn't actually a suitable diagram, because it leaves out some key players. And those key players are, of course, yourselves, the parents and guardians, and the person who probably has the most say in these formative years, and that's your sons. And I think that this is where the idea of community comes in, is that while we have this protective bubble, this lighthouse, this support structure that surrounds everything, we're not the only players in it. And we mustn't underestimate the role on all stakeholders, and I think particularly on the child. So for me, I think very often we're trying to clear the road. We're trying for the boys. We're trying to make it as easy as possible for them to succeed. We want them to do their best, and we want to clear obstacles. And that's actually not the case. I think we too often think of the school and the parents as the ones who have to deal with what's happening and help and support the child. But the child has an incredibly important role to play in their own success as well. So it takes a village to raise a child. That quote was used today in a meeting, so I stole it. But the idea is that we're all on the same team and we want the same thing: your son's happiness, his health, success, and engagement. So as a housemaster, tutor, teachers, I realize that I speak for a number of staff. We are in his corner, is the idea. We're there to celebrate his victories. We're there to support him. And I think the idea of support here doesn't just speak to this, support when it's needed, support when there's a cry for help. Support is being there. It's similar to being in his corner. It's this idea of on the side of the sports field. It's helping him to, whether it's move into a pass in a subject, to achieve a distinction, to get a slightly better mark. That support is not just about helping. I think it's just so that they're not feeling alone, so that isolation doesn't exist. And then, of course, to guide him. But then I think on the flip side, which is the more difficult side of obviously being a school, being a parent, is to hold your son accountable. Fortunately, I think school years, one of the key aspects of it is that when they make mistakes, they can learn from them. And one of the key lessons that they can learn during this time is that there are consequences for their actions. So unfortunately, when you look at your cell phone and it's ringing and it's the housemaster's name, often that's not seen as a good sign. Hopefully that's not always the case, but I think we must remember that even there, where I think instinct is to protect and to help and to work together and to get the boys to learn these important lessons, to learn that there are consequences, is an essential part of schooling. And it's a difficult part, it's uncomfortable, but it's important. And I think if we all understand that we're on the same team, it's a slightly smoother thing to do. And then to empower your child. I think very often there's, we're trying to find out what time is he finishing. We try to arrange his day. We take some of the challenges off his plate. And I don't think that helps. Instead, we need to help them build resilience and also confidence. I'd much prefer, rather than getting an email asking what time something is happening on Saturday, a sports event or whatever, I would much prefer the boy to come up to me and ask me, or to approach his coach and to get that information himself. I think it's essential. So we need to empower them. And I always speak about how I want people to come with problems. I want people to come and speak to me as a housemaster. If a boy is concerned or worried or he doesn't know what kit to wear, I want him to approach me. But my job isn't to make it happen, to provide the answers, but rather to guide him, to help him find solutions to his problems. So I think that's one of the key aspects. And I think the more stakeholders we have, and it includes all three of those, the school, the parents and guardians, and the child working together, there's incredible success that we can achieve. So we are in this together. So I would like to encourage you, please, to build that relationship with your son's housemaster and tutor. When you see them at the side of the field, when you have a meeting, when there's parents' evenings, please engage with them, speak to them, and then please encourage your son to do the same. We, I think, can relate to one another, because very often we have children who sit in tutor classes who are quiet. The kind of, how was your day? Fine. What did you do? Nothing. Very short, very closed. And we want to help them to develop that trust and open up so that they feel comfortable sharing their thoughts, their ideas, their feelings. So please encourage them to develop those relationships too. Obviously, our tutors and housemasters and everyone will work at that. But the more willing they are, the easier it is. And then to please help get him involved and keep him involved. I think the sports and cultural activities, and there's a myriad of them. There's there's a saying about idle hands that I believe wholeheartedly. When boys don't have a lot to do, they find things to do, and sometimes that can get them into trouble. And ideally, we have boys who are building fond memories of being on the field with their friends, of participating on stages, of playing musical instruments, whatever the case is. I've never ever heard, and I don't think I ever will, some old boy come and say, I wish I had spent more time scrolling Instagram or playing more Candy Crush. So they must be involved and encourage them. Again, this is something we will do together because we are all in this together. And then I would ask that you reach out to your housemaster or tutor if you have any concerns. If you are worried about something, if you're worried about your child, please let us know. Sometimes it's hard to pick up on these things. Sometimes they don't readily engage with us. So if there's something we can do to help, please let us know. And then again, if you wish to share anything that can help us support your boy, if there's something happening at home or anything really that can just help us be there for him, I would really appreciate that. I know your housemasters and myself would really appreciate that. So that's all from me. I would like to hand over to Mrs. Standish White. But thank you, everyone, for your time. And if there are any questions, your housemasters are and tutors are an email away. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Drip. As he mentioned, my name is Jess Stander. I am the Eland housemaster. And this evening, I'm just going to speak a little bit more about the tutor role at Jeppe. So I'll pull up a couple of slides. So the role of the tutor is kind of our central point in the pastoral care system. And just to start with a brief overview of that, we have around 50 educators, just over 50 educators, playing a tutor role across the 8 houses. Those tutor groups are constructed of about 22 learners per group. We pick a mix across the different grades, so you'll have a handful of grade 8s, 9s, all the way to matrics sitting in an individual tutor group, and those tutor groups are arranged in houses. What's very exciting is that this system with the tutor groups has now actually been in place for 5 years. So all of our matric students this year have experienced this tutor system for their full high school career. And so we're getting some quite nice continuity and momentum there, and look forward to growing that year on year. Second point I wanted to address here is kind of, well, what is the purpose of these tutor groups? And I think the starting point here is meeting a couple of administrative requirements. So you can expect a tutor to take register each day, to give different announcements, to follow up on disciplinary matters, and to write the termly tutor comments that many of you would have received in the past. However, beyond that, I think tutors can also help to create a safe and caring space for learners. In many cases, that's the first adult at Jeppe who they encounter in the morning, and is hopefully an adult who supports their educational journey throughout their time at Jeppe. Within the tutor group, there's also an opportunity to build quite a nice network of support. So not only a relationship between the tutor and the learner, but also the different learners in that tutor group. So building kind of a peer network that can provide support. You think of a grade 8, I know many of the grade 8s at the moment are struggling to find their way throughout the school, for example, and perhaps them asking a more senior boy to help them out with that. So ideally bringing those 22 odd learners together so that they can help each other and form a bit of a community within the tutor group itself. That all funnels ultimately into the house system. So the idea is that the relationships and the discussions that get formed in these tutor groups ultimately actually come together in a broader house network of relationships. And so that's kind of, you can picture the tutor groups are that base layer, and pull together to help us to make sure that each boy, as far as possible, has at least one meaningful relationship with an adult, their tutor, and then with the housemaster as well, as Mr. Duruk outlined. Also wanted to just share a couple of ideas that we're running this year, just so that you can get a bit of a flavor of what it is that we do in our tutor periods. So the first thing that we're running is an initiative where we send out wellness forms to all of our learners on a fortnightly basis. In these forms, they just check in, they let us know how they're doing, what their well-being score is like over the past couple of days, what some highlights have been, perhaps what they're struggling with or have found difficult. And the purpose of these forms is really for us just to gather some more information, check in on how the boys are doing, and then to respond accordingly. Also run a couple of initiatives around just getting boys to start engaging with each other. So a number of tutor groups on a Thursday, we'll have a couple of conversation starters to get the boys chatting to each other and learning from one another. Many tutor groups have adopted phone-free time just to try to spark that engagement. A couple of mentorship programs running in different houses. And then finally, we have quite a nice opportunity several times a term where we have what's called an extended tutor period, where boys will spend a lesson, so 40 to 45 minutes together as a group, discussing topics such as setting goals and how to pursue those, how to form meaningful relationships. So they're just really focusing on how to support them and help them thrive in their high school journey. My last slide ties in quite nicely with what Mr. Duruk mentioned. Just with this information and hopefully with a broader understanding of what we're trying to do with tutors and in these tutor groups, how do you as parents and guardians try to make the most of that relationship? I think it's a very special relationship in that there's an adult dedicated to the holistic education and overall kind of well-being of your boy in the school. And so I think first and foremost is to use that tutor as your first port of call. So it could be something around absenteeism, could have a query. If your son is struggling with a couple of challenges or difficulties, please go to the tutor and certainly the housemaster as well as your first best option. Tutor will either be able to help or will be able to direct you to someone who can assist. The second is to encourage you to meet your son's tutor. You can pop in at parents' evening or perhaps on the weekend at a sports fixture, especially if these relationships last over a couple of years where your son is in the same tutor group with the same tutor. It's really, really nice to build that relationship and work together over several years. And then finally, Mr. Duruk mentioned this as well, just encouraging your sons to engage in the tutor group space. The community is only as strong as we make it together. And so if there's anything that you can do to inspire your son to take that opportunity to get to know his tutor, to build relationships with other boys in the group and learn from them and perhaps help them and teach them and guide them, especially when he's a senior boy in the school, that certainly helps to build not only a tighter community within each tutor group, but ultimately a school that has stronger relationships all around. So that's it from me on the tutor-learner relationship. I will now be handing over to Mrs. Gisleni, who will be talking through the educational psychologist role. Thank you.
Thanks, Jess. So good evening. As introduced, my name is Nikita Gisleni, and I'm the educational psychologist at Jeppe High School for Boys. As a psychologist, my primary focus is on helping your son navigate the challenges as well as the triumphs that come with life. High school's not just about academics or sports, but it's also about your son's personal growth and development. So if your son is struggling with self-esteem issues, poor relationship issues, heightened anxiety, academic difficulties, bullying, there could even be issues at home, losing of a loved one, feelings of depression, these are all areas in which we can assist therapeutically. Academic difficulties can also be identified, and with the professional judgment of the school-based support team, assistance can then be provided to your son. So on my slide, I'm just going to share now with you, how can your son access the services that I provide? So this process is an internal process. So this means that they are referred internally by the staff, and they use their professional judgment to identify the learners that are in need of support and development. Sorry, I think, just seeing if my slide's going to pop up. There we go, thank you. So when I'm talking about the services that are provided, we kind of break them up into two things, emotional and academic. Now, we know not everything is that black and white, but it's just our way of trying to have two channels of communications so that we can best support your sons. So we've got emotional and we've got academic. Both of these branches, the staff, coaches, tutors, they will be identifying any of the concerns that they are picking up and then filling out referral forms. As a parent, you might be wondering, well, what if I feel that my child needs some extra support? Then your channel of communication would be going through to your son's tutor, and then again, it would filter through the internal school referral process. I do ask that you just bear in mind that I'm one psychologist in the entire school, and every single one of your sons are important to us, but there is a waiting list for these services. If your son is making use of the services, depending on their age, we will notify you. If they're in need of an assessment and we have the capacity as a school to assist, you will be contacted and there will be a fee to pay for these services. We do encourage you to please inform the school if maybe any incidents do occur that you feel could impact your son, so that we can provide support. If we don't have the capacity to assist, then we can provide a letter of practitioners whom we've used before, who can then possibly assist your son sooner. And at the school, we can then provide basic check-ins just to ensure that they are managing. It is important to highlight that with so many learners needing therapeutic support, the school can only offer short-term therapy. So that means about 8 to 12 sessions. And as a school, we do not take on any psycholegal work. So that means if parents are going through a divorce, maybe certain assessments are needed to be done, the psychologist is needing to be an expert witness. These are not services that we are able to provide just because of the capacity that we have. Due to the very high demands that we've had just in the few weeks that we've been open this year already, we do encourage parents who are fortunate enough to have medical aid to please make use of the external services that are available to them. The last point just to make is just more with regards to the application of concessions and accommodations to the department. So we are waiting still for specific dates from the department, but just to have at the back of your mind, if you are wanting to apply for a concession for your son, if they are in grade 12, the date is usually in March, the beginning of March. Grade 11s and grade 10s are the end of term 1, and grade 8s and 9s at the end of term 2. So just bear that in mind. There's a lot of documentation that we'll be requiring. And if you do need any further information or referrals, please do reach out to us and I can assist with that process. Just to bear in mind, we do try and accommodate as many learners as we can over the exam period with the various accommodations. However, there are limited resources and manpower when it comes to certain accommodations like scribes and readers. So I really do look forward to working with your sons and potentially yourselves as parents and assisting in the pastoral team in creating a supportive and nurturing environment where your sons can thrive. So thank you so much for your time. I'm now going to hand back to Mr. Morrison.
Thank you very much, ma'am, and to everyone who's spoken. I apologize for the now dimmed light. We've just gone into load shedding, but thankfully the Wi-Fi is still working. I really do want to just reiterate my thanks to Mr. Deruk, Mrs. Standish-White, Mrs. Ghisleni. You know, I think for a number of years now, we've been trying to build this program. As many schools as there are those many schools who are doing their best to try and care and nurture the young people in their care. And, you know, we believe very much that our structure provides the opportunities for that, but structure has limitations without having people of great capability. But I think the secret ingredient to any really high functioning quality pastoral care system is that ingredient that you can't force, which is care. And I think the amount of care, the amount of intention that it goes behind this system, just through the speakers this evening and all of the tutors, is something that we're incredibly proud of. We're constantly looking to improve it. We're constantly looking to engage better. But I think, and I know that there are a number of people who care deeply about providing those safe opportunities for young men to grow and to develop into the very best versions of themselves. So I really want to just reiterate that thanks one more time. Thanks to all of you who've joined us. I think we topped off at about 204, 205 people, which is a remarkable effort from our community to join us. As we know, these videos will be circulated on different platforms. But again, part of the great care and the investment of our community doesn't just reside within our staff, but in our parents, in our old boys, and all of those who care so deeply about our Jeppe boys and our Jeppe community. I'd also like to finally thank Mr. Ross Olive, as with so many of the things that we've done technologically over the recent years. Mr. Olive is the director-in-chief when it comes to productions such as this. And as it's gone so smoothly, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, Mr. Olive, you may well have a permanent job in putting together these productions going forward. But it's a great evening for us. Like I said, a huge learning opportunity for us. Hugely proud of the team that we've got in our pastoral care and all of those who've spoken, and incredibly proud of our Jeppe boys and our Jeppe community. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll hope to see you soon and to engage with you further.